A blinding flash tore through the night sky over eastern Ukraine's industrial belt. For 12 full seconds, the darkness turned white long enough to silence every Russian air defense radar in the region. No alarms, no counter signals. On command screens across multiple bases, every radar trace vanished at once. What could neutralize one of Europe's densest air defense networks in just a few seconds? And why, moments later, did a surge of strange electromagnetic signals erupt as if an invisible door had opened across the electronic battlefield? 10:30 p.m. October 15, 2025. A Ukrainian rocket artillery crew was preparing to launch a precision strike on a Russian supply depot when enemy counter-battery radar detected their emissions from 38 kilometers away. From that instant began a 6-minute race for survival between two machines built for opposite purposes, one to detect, one to destroy. Could speed outmatch artificial intelligence? Or would technology itself turn its human operators into targets? Don't look away, because in the next few minutes, you'll witness how an ordinary firing crew transformed a routine mission into a desperate fight to survive inside the storm of modern electronic warfare. 22 hours, 31 minutes. Inside the cabin of the Ukrainian launch vehicle, red warning lights were flashing. The control screen displayed the emission signal of a Russian counter-battery radar at a distance of 38 kilometers. That meant they had been locked on as a target. According to calculations, the counter-battery shells would arrive in 6 minutes, shorter than the time required to complete the entire launch sequence. 22 hours, 32 minutes. The GPS signal began to experience interference and the target map disappeared. The operator switched to manual coordinate input based on old reconnaissance data with an allowable error of only 5 meters. Outside, the infrared sensor detected a large heat signature to the northeast. The enemy had opened fire. The speed of the counter-battery rockets was 1,200 meters per second. The remaining time, 4 minutes. The commander gave a short order: bypass safety protocol, load all rounds. The automatic loading system roared and the launch tubes opened. Each missile weighed 800 kilograms with a concrete piercing warhead of 170 kilograms. Normally, it took 3 minutes to load one missile, but now they had to complete 4 within 90 seconds. 22 hours, 34 minutes. The first missile left the tube, a white streak tearing through the night sky. In an instant, Russian radar detected the flight path, and the counter-battery antennas began calculating the impact point. The commander looked at his watch, 2.5 minutes remaining. 3 missiles had not yet been launched, and the ground was already shaking from the first explosion in the distance. The vehicle's engine started, ready to leave the firing position immediately after the final launch. The 6 minutes of life and death had now been reduced to 2. From this moment onward, every keystroke, every slight deviation would determine whether the mission was completed or erased forever. 22 hours, 35 minutes. When the 4th missile left the launch tube, the eastern sky suddenly lit up. 4 streams of white fire shot through the night, marking the moment when the entire battlefield shifted into a state of full alert. Russian radars along the border region simultaneously changed frequencies, attempting to determine the trajectory of each projectile. The Zoopark-1M counter-battery system transmitted coordinate data to the Smerch launchers, while the air defense surveillance network activated the supersonic target mode. On the other side, a pair of Ukrainian reconnaissance UAVs, medium range and unarmed, circled at an altitude of 6,000 meters, transmitting real-time images back to command headquarters. Every frame was analyzed by automated algorithms, flashes from return fire, radar positions, and the launch direction of enemy rockets. That data was immediately relayed back to the launch vehicle, where the commander was calculating the escape route. 22 hours 36 minutes. The first waves of counter-battery fire began to fall. 400 meters from the launch position, earth and debris erupted into columns of flame more than 10 meters high. But the 4 Ukrainian missiles had already left the tubes, carrying with them all the hopes of the crew. In the sky, Russian jamming systems began to saturate the entire region. GPS, GLONASS, and even tactical radio links were cut off. Inside the control cabin, the navigation screen displayed nothing but white noise. The operator understood that from this point on, everything depended on the missile's inertial guidance system, a fiber optic gyroscope with an error margin of only 0.2 of a degree per hour. 22 hours 40 minutes. The Russian side deployed additional surveillance UAVs to confirm the flight paths of the incoming missiles. They noticed small adjustments in the trajectories. Each missile shifted its angle by several degrees, making it difficult for radar to predict the exact impact point. At the same time, the short-range air defense network was activated. A Tor-M2 unit locked onto its target at a distance of 15 kilometers. 2 interceptor missiles were launched almost instantly. The entire sky flashed with light, then fell silent except for the rapid pulse of radar waves sweeping across the airspace. In the command post, the air defense officer reported briefly, "The target is abnormal, it is maneuvering." 22 hours 41 minutes. The Ukrainian UAVs maintained their link despite the jamming. Their infrared cameras captured the glow of the 2 interceptor missiles chasing the guided rockets. A signal was sent back to the data center. The Tor system has launched. At the same time, the Ukrainian launch vehicle had already left its original position, rolling westward and leaving behind a patch of ground covered in smoke and debris. The war was no longer an exchange of artillery fire, it had become a contest between algorithms, between radar systems, drones, and electronic signals fighting for control of every fragment of the electromagnetic spectrum. And in that chaotic sky, the 4 missiles continued on their course straight toward the heart of the enemy's supply depot. 22 hours, 41 minutes, and 15 seconds. The Russian fire control radar locked onto one of the 4 incoming missiles at an altitude of 6,000 meters. 2 Tor-M2 interceptor missiles were launched almost instantly, their vertical trails of flame accelerating past Mach 2 within seconds. Inside the control center, the tracking officer reported, "Target stable." But only 2 seconds later, the Ukrainian missile tilted 15 degrees, changing its trajectory. All interception calculations became invalid. The pair of Tor missiles detonated early, scattering fragments around the target but failing to destroy the warhead. From the southeast direction, the Pantsir-S1 system joined the battle, launching 357 E-6 missiles in quick succession. On the radar display, multiple streaks of light intersected. The second Ukrainian missile executed evasive maneuvers, rapidly descending and heading directly toward the supply depot. The Pantsir missiles exploded nearby, causing violent shockwaves, but the target maintained its course. The distance was now 8 kilometers. Russian air defense units switched to automatic Shilka cannons, firing at low altitude. Hundreds of red tracer rounds formed a wall of fire, but the speed of the missiles was too great for an effective response. In the final 3 seconds, radar contact was lost. At 22 hours 42 minutes and 35 seconds, 3 out of 4 missiles had penetrated the interception zone, heading straight toward the enemy's supply depot. 30 seconds of air defense, 3 missiles breaking through. In the world of modern warfare, that is the thin line between interception and catastrophe. 22 hours 49 minutes. 3 Ukrainian missiles had passed through the air defense network and entered their final dive. On the ground, the Russian supply depot remained brightly lit and fully operational. No one had yet realized that in less than 10 seconds, the entire area would become the epicenter of an explosion unlike anything seen since the beginning of the war. At an altitude of 400 meters, the first warhead activated its altitude sensor and switched to contact mode. 5 seconds later, it struck the roof of the eastern warehouse. A flash of light erupted, followed by a massive fireball that expanded outward with tremendous pressure, sweeping across hundreds of meters. The shock wave tore away metal roofs and toppled rows of containers filled with ammunition. The second missile plunged into the northern warehouse, where thousands of small-caliber rockets were stored. The combined force of the explosions shattered the reinforced concrete structure in an instant. 10 seconds later, the third missile struck the fuel storage zone where ammunition crates and kerosene drums were stacked side by side. The entire complex ignited and a mushroom-shaped column of smoke rose into the night sky, visible from tens of kilometers away. In less than 3 minutes, more than 3,000 tons of ammunition and fuel detonated in a chain reaction. Seismic sensors recorded tremors equivalent to a minor earthquake. The Russian command center was forced to issue an order to suspend all artillery operations in the region to prevent secondary detonations. By 23 hours 10 minutes, 4 massive fires still burned brightly on satellite imagery. The entire supply depot had been erased, along with 3 weeks' worth of ammunition reserves for a frontline corps. What began as a seemingly small-scale attack had become a tactical turning point. Not merely because of the physical destruction, but because it revealed the most unsettling truth of modern warfare. With just 3 precise missiles, an entire front line can be paralyzed. Among military observers, the explosion at the supply depot in eastern Ukraine was regarded as a case study of modern warfare. 3 missiles, launched within less than 6 minutes, had destroyed the entire ammunition reserve of an entire corps. The tactical effect was immediate, but the more significant consequence lay in the chain reaction that followed. Within 24 hours, Russian artillery units were ordered to disperse all remaining stockpiles into smaller, separate locations. A logistics system once designed for centralization was now forced to operate in a fragmented state, reducing efficiency but increasing survivability. For Ukraine, the operation was not merely a strike on logistics, but also a test of coordination between rocket artillery, UAV reconnaissance, and electronic warfare. NATO analysts assess that the combination of launch speed and counter-radar mobility demonstrated a growing level of tactical autonomy. However, they also warned that every precision strike carries the risk of escalation. Attacks on targets deep within enemy territory could provoke proportional or even escalatory responses. From a strategic perspective, the event reaffirmed an old principle of modern warfare. Logistics remain the Achilles heel of every great power. It is not firepower, but the ability to sustain and protect the supply chain that determines the endurance of a campaign. Western analysts viewed this as a warning about the fragility of the modern battlefield, where even a minor failure in securing supply infrastructure can cause an entire defensive line to collapse within minutes. And in the darkness, illuminated by fire and smoke, one truth became clearer than ever: technological strength can never replace the power of preparation. By the time the last flame faded, the night over the eastern industrial zone was left with only scattered points of light. No more explosions, only thin streams of smoke drifting across a sky heavy with darkness. The attack had lasted only minutes, yet its aftershocks would endure for weeks, perhaps even years, not only on the military map, but in the strategic thinking of both sides. Observers called it the true portrait of 21st century warfare. No clear front lines, no boundaries between technology and humanity. With just a few launch commands, an ammunition depot, a logistics hub, even a city could see its fate rewritten in an instant. What was once considered secure has now become vulnerable. And the paradox is clear. The more advanced technology becomes, the faster, harsher, and less human the decisions that follow. From afar, satellites recorded the flash of the explosion, spreading across the map like a pulse of light. In Washington, Brussels, and Tokyo, defense analysts understood it was not merely a tactical success, but a reminder of the enduring value of deterrence and control. Military power, in itself, is not meant to start wars, but to prevent them. Because a single minute of weakness can bring a decade of chaos. If war is a fire, then peace is the lamp, a fragile light that burns only when someone is willing to keep it alive. Share your thoughts, because history is being written every day, and wherever we are, we remain its witnesses.